What's up, fam? This is the day the Lord has made, and we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. I want to welcome you to the Hope TV. It's a privilege and certainly it's an honor to have an opportunity just to invite you to be a part of a conversation. Your support of the Hope TV has been incredible. Those who've tuned in today for the very first time, let me thank you for tuning in to the Hope TV. This is a platform we started in order to bring positive content through the pandemic. Our first show was on March 19th, and since March 19th until today, we've added 23 additional shows, and we've had well over 6 million views throughout our cumulative platform. So it's indeed an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to have you with us. So if you've logged on or tuned in via Apple TV, Roku TV, Switch, YouTube, Facebook, if you're viewing by Periscope, by the websites or the apps, however you're viewing, we're thankful and we're appreciative to you for your support. And since you've logged on, if you're viewing through a platform that will allow you to drop a comment or subscribe or send a link to someone else, please take advantage of that and help us to spread a positive message. These are difficult times in which we're living, but I want you to know that there is always encouragement, there's always hope. And it is my prayer that you are inspired as a result of your time with us on today. And if you've not yet done it, please follow us on all things social media at The Hope TV. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You also can follow the church page, the House of Hope Atlanta, on YouTube. Subscribe to the page on Facebook, HOHATL on Instagram, and on Twitter. It certainly will mean a whole lot to us. And while you're watching, drop us a line. Let us know the city, state, and country from whence you're viewing. It's important to us because we want to bring content that's specific to your demographic. We don't take your viewership lightly, and we just want to let you know that we appreciate you, and we want to certainly bring you some positive content. Our aim here is to provide a daily dose of hope. So thank you for tuning in. I consider myself to be a hope dealer, and I hope today that as you tune into the Hope TV, that certainly you will receive your daily dose of hope. This is one of my favorite broadcasts of the Hope TV. It's incredible. We have many that empower people spiritually and mentally, emotionally, and physically. We deal with a multi-generational approach. But this broadcast is special. It's called One-on-One. Well, I've been blessed to interview some great, bright minds, some accomplished individuals who have succeeded and done incredibly well in their fields. We've had professional athletes on here. We've had singers and entertainers, celebrities, filmmakers, politicians, you name it. We've had them here, professors here on this show. But today is incredibly special. This one runs real deep. This is real deep today. It's real serious today because this is not just about TV. This is home. This is home. This is safe. This is me. This represents my roots. This represents who I am, the fabric and the totality of my essence. And so this is an incredible time because I'm able today to introduce and to interview personally today someone who I've known literally for all my days. I've known her family, our father, one of my mentors. I've known her literally all my life, from the time she was a student at W.T. Morgan Elementary School to her days at Southwest High School there in Macon, Georgia, 478, representing Mactown, and I came to Spelman College, and from Spelman College, graduated from Spelman, and subsequently has done postgraduate work, graduate work at University of South Carolina and Georgia Southern. She has taught everywhere from Pittsburgh to Bibb County to DeKalb County, Charleston, South Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky. She was named the superintendent of schools of Birmingham City Schools 3 years ago, and now she's just been named as the superintendent of the Atlanta Public Schools. She'll begin her tenure this coming July 1st. And so this is deep. This is huge. This is exciting to be able to interview. And so somebody who I love and who I appreciate and who I respect so much. She's Dr. Lisa Herring, but she's my friend. She's my girl. She's my hometown. She's part of me. I'm so glad to have her here with us today. Dr. Lisa Herring, how are you?
Pastor Smith, Dr. Smith, my pastor, my mentor, my brother, my friend, I am well. I am honored to be here, and I am very well, doing well. I cannot and will not complain.
Well, I'm glad to have you back here again, if you know what I mean. So thank you for being back here on the platform, and I'm so excited to hear your journey. I've given a little cursory explanation and background on who you are, but I want the people to hear your story from your own lips. So tell the people, tell us about your journey from Macon to now. I want to hear it all, and I want the people to hear it as well.
Well, I want to thank you. And I certainly will share a little bit more about my journey. And before I do want to take the liberty to just thank you, not just for your spiritual leadership, but for this platform, especially during a time such as the pandemic, where hope is still very much important and necessary. And to know that platforms like this exist to reach others is something that we have to pause and express gratitude for. So for me, I certainly want to do that. And your kind words, very kind, in doing an introduction to me or who I am, I receive. It's not a secret. I'm born and raised Macon, Georgia, Mactown, as you say, 478. We try very well to represent in multiple ways. It is, of course, home. And for me, this season in my life where I am now transitioning back to Georgia, specifically to Atlanta, Georgia, is one in which it is also a homecoming. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful in multiple ways, not just in the professional capacity, but in my personal capacity as well, because it is a homecoming. Coming out of Macon, Georgia, and you and I both know that city very well, as that's been our hometown. We've been blessed and fortunate to not only know each other, but to have interacted, whether it's Southwest versus Central or otherwise. We've been fortunate. And for me, this journey in education, that's where it started. It started in my hometown, in a household full of love and discipline, but in the most healthiest of ways. My parents, Reverend Wallace Herring Sr. and my mother, Lady Lena Herring, have been a blessing to me and my three siblings. I have three brothers. I'm the only female child as it relates to the sibling pool. But we've been fortunate to have been raised in a household where there were great expectations around education. And I, for one, loved learning. I still do. I love being a student. I love being in the classroom. I enjoyed the teachers for whom I could feel their passion. I was surrounded by a village of individuals who spoke life to me, whether that was elementary school, middle, or high. And there was something about that journey that catapulted me in my decisions as it related to Spelman College. I've thought about that after even my high school principal, Gloria Washington, who's no longer with us, wrote my letter of recommendation to Spelman, and Gloria Washington was a Spelman alum also. But then Spelman changed so much about who I am and who I was at that time, and in my own becoming, if you will, that was one of the best decisions of my life, to make the choice to attend Spelman College. It's there where I not only discovered more of myself as an African American woman, but I made decisions around the next level of my career. And several moments after that have been pivotal, whether it's been where I've chosen to go to school or what career I chose. For me, that was a path of education. Although originally I thought a little bit about law school, I went from Spelman into the classroom in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. And from there on, my journey has unfolded in a way to which I am grateful. I do not believe it's been accidental. And it's put me in a place where I can lead and serve and advocate for children. And I wouldn't take anything for that journey. To be coming back home after having worked in some of the most unique cities in American history, to champion and advocate for all, and now to be back in a space where I found myself determining what my pathway would be, I am humbled. So the work for Atlanta Public Schools that I now inherit is something that I not only take seriously, I recognize that that's become a new part on this journey, and I'm excited about what's ahead for the next level.
You know, it's amazing to hear the story, you know, knowing your family and knowing you. You know, your dad gave me my first opportunity to preach my first public sermon I'm just celebrating 32 years of preaching this month, but the first public sermon I was able to do after my initial sermon was your dad, May 29th of 1988. So 32 years later, but even before then, making Little League Tom Fontaine Field, Little League. I wanted to play for your dad's team so bad, the 18 Indians, and he didn't draft me. I got drafted by the Orioles, and here we are almost 40 years later. I still go back and forth with him for not drafting me. We won the championship.
Right.
Tease him, he'd have won. And your brother playing baseball with Wallace and playing football as he played Southwest. I played against Central, and and just seeing your journey. You and I would ride back and forth to Spelman and Morehouse, back and forth from Atlanta sometimes when we were in school together. And it's just been a beautiful thing to see. But having that connection with your family, I know your dad, as I said, he's pastored several churches in Georgia. He's also pastored in Maryland. You have two brothers, Moses Herring, who's in Chicagoland now, and Faith Movers Church. He also has a broadcast on the Hope TV. John Herring, who's my brother-in-law, who I'm very close to, as well as your entire family. I want to know, what does that look like in terms of having a father who's a pastor, having two brothers who are pastors? You have several uncles who are pastors as well. Have you gleaned anything in terms of leadership styles from the pastors in your family, and has that influenced your leadership style in any way?
So I think that that's an incredibly insightful question. And as I have reflected on the village around me, in my most intimate circle, that being my family, my siblings, my parents. As you've mentioned, I've had, and sometimes I share this with individuals, not always, I've had pastors around me all of my life. If there's a question around influence or impact in the way that I have not only discovered my own place in my profession, but in the way that I lead, I think that it's an immediate answer of yes, that there's been influence. When I interview and I'm asked about my leadership style, and by research, there are many leadership styles, but one of the ones that must always come out of my mouth is that of a servant leader. And I say that sincerely, I say it seriously, and then I'm deliberate around modeling that as I do my day-to-day commitment. There's something unique around the role of an educator, for me, a superintendent, and then that of a pastor. I'm not by any stretch suggesting that they are the same, but I do believe and recognize that I've been called to serve. My service capacity is different, but I do believe I have a responsibility to pour, not just into children, but also into those who are responsible for influencing and educating them. I, in my own philosophical belief about education, recognize that that frees them, that liberates them. Complementary to that, and you know much better than I, is the role of a pastor. That calling, if you will, called not just to serve, but to free us. I'll stop there because I'm not as poised to speak to that, but I recognize that there is a complement. And I have spent the vast majority of my life reflecting on that. I'm grateful. I'm sensitive to that. And I'd like to think that there are some characteristics tied to my professional mannerisms that may mirror what I've seen in trying to do well and to do good for people and by people. It's a beautiful compliment in the way that they coexist. And I have to own it. If I had said anything otherwise, I don't think that I would be being responsible.
Wow. You've always walked with a sense of responsibility, and I've always honored and admired and just had the utmost of appreciation for who you are as a person and seeing you grow as an educator. But one of the things I remember that has been so beautiful to see you evolve to is that of a mother. I remember when you became a mother and balancing education and becoming a mother for the first time, at a young age, and how you navigated those things. And the very fact that Imani, this little baby who I just remember being born seemingly yesterday, is now full grown. She's a full grown woman following your footsteps to Spelman College, and now she is an adult. Yes. Goodness, would you kind of just talk about that process? What does that feel like to have her actually attend Spelman, and she's now grown? And how you've navigated education and raising your daughter.
So I hope that the smile on my face is some level of reflection of me and my embrace of being a mother. I have to be very transparent. I became a mother very quickly after having graduated. I was not married, unwed, 23 years old. And I remember very vividly the emotions inside of me, not just around the reality of having become a mother, but tied to having to sit down with my parents that I just mentioned in our last question. I felt this worry of having let them down because I was unwed and I had not finished my own journey. And the way that they sat down with me and in their own way lifted my head that was heavy and spoke life into that moment and demanded that I not have my head down and that I recognize that life is a gift, it is a joy, and they were very clear that we were going to celebrate that life was everything for me. That was a defining moment on my journey. It's one that I think is important for me to share because I also wrestled with being all of the statistics that I had read about, right? And being determined to not be a certain, on a certain path that was not a part of what I was destined to be. The other part of that was when this little baby came out of me and I looked at her and I realized this real responsibility tied to motherhood, it also changed everything about me. It changed what my thought pattern was for my own career and my journey. It was a defining moment for me to continue my education. It has also been how I've governed and carried myself as an educator, knowing that for every child that I serve, there's someone who is responsible for a life, and all we want for them is the very best. And in public education, that is exactly what parents give us, their very best, regardless of the background, regardless of the circumstance. And this huge responsibility that we have to meet them there with their children and help develop a pathway for their success is critical. For me, being a mother has never changed that. Now, I said that Amani's 23 years old. She is where I was in terms of age, and I am proud. I'm proud that she is a part of a Spelman legacy. I am proud that not only has she graduated, but I am so proud of the beautiful woman that she has become. And I have by design tried to do my best to speak life into her. And now as she is adulting, I celebrate not only that I'm her mother, I think a lot of days I'm her friend as well. Now I'm always her mother in my mother voice and in my mother face, right? But as she adults, there's a joy in watching her evolve and also be able to be her friend. And it still guides me, even as a superintendent, around what we want to see, not just for your own child, but for everyone's child.
Amazing. You know, to watch the journey we talked about, you know, and see how money is a part of that journey, you know, from Spelman, you know, Pennsylvania, back to Bibb County, you know, DeKalb County, Bibb County, you know, Charleston, South Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, 3 years in Birmingham. Now you're coming back to APS or coming to Atlanta Public School System. Is there anything, what have you gleaned from those different stops along the way that you think has prepared you for this moment to take the helm of superintendency of Atlanta Public Schools? How has your journey prepared you for this moment?
So I appreciate that question, especially in the way that it challenges me to reflect. And I've learned a few things, although I own that there's so much more to learn along the way. But on this journey, on my journey, as things are starting to become full circle, and what you just captured was about a 25 plus, maybe 29-year history or of experiences. But even from the reality that when I chose Spelman, and I couldn't have known then, my freshman year at Spelman, Dr. Janetta B. Cole served as president. And I remember having my classes and being done by 12. And by the end of the second semester, I had too much free time, went to my advisor, and she did something or communicated something to me that was a given as a Spelmanite, which was we are responsible for lifting as we climb. And volunteerism was put on my radar. I immediately found myself looking for a place to volunteer. And I found myself in Atlanta on Burn Street at Warren Memorial Boys and Girls Club. Now, I share that because Warren Memorial served and still serves the children of Thomasville Heights for Atlanta Public Schools. A year, I stayed at Warren Memorial until I graduated. I was volunteering, and then I started working there part-time as the Learning Center director. And then in my senior year, I had to do, because my major was English, but my minor was education, and I had to do field observation. And where did they send me? Darrow High School, Atlanta Public Schools, where I found myself in an educational, observational space that was teaching me more than I could have known I was being prepared for. And then following that, I took a position as a teacher in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at a private school, a school of great affluence, the Winchester Thurston School, primarily private Jewish school. And what stood out to me by the end of the year and the experiences leading up to that was the reality around education and its impact, the disparities that I hadn't really thought about until I was teaching at a very affluent Jewish school and had been serving children in Thomasville Heights. So then the next part of my journey was teaching. You might remember the principal at the then McAvoy Middle School, Dr. Charles Sheftal. And he hired me for my first year of teaching, which is also when I conceived Imani. This part I'm sharing is that there were no accidents on my journey, even though I didn't know that then. And then, as one of my brothers asked me not too long ago, how is it that along the way you've chosen the most interesting cities? Charleston, South Carolina. Even today, the name of Charleston evokes concerns and historical realities tied to not just the Middle Passage, but to the Emanuel 9. I was there then. Or to Louisville, Kentucky. Or even being from Macon and having worked in Decatur and now leaving, but having served in Birmingham to come to a city called Atlanta. When I reflect, based on your question on that journey, what I thought might have been just me planning was a purposed journey. And I see that now better than I ever could. Because when I'm having this conversation about serving as the superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools, I go back to Burn Street. I've actually gone back the last couple of weeks and driven by there. You ever just go back and drive to remember and remind yourself? Down through Thomasville Heights, some concerns about what hasn't changed and what has, right? This tells me that I was being prepared along the way. Sometimes when I thought I was being punished, I was being prepared. And that even when I thought I was planning, that there's a much bigger plan than me. And you don't know that until you find yourself in a new season or in a new reality. Certainly, without question, all of these experiences, and even the ones that I may not even recall in this moment, have been by a design, and I'm grateful for that.
It's absolutely, it's amazing, navigating those steps and reflecting and recollecting. And, I remember when you left Louisville, I remember when you went to Louisville, I remember when you went to Birmingham. And I remember, the situation with Birmingham when you went there, and to see where Birmingham schools were 3 years ago when you were hired, and to see all the data and all the reports that are out that chronicles the progress, tremendous progress that took place in Birmingham City Schools under your administration. My question would be, what in the world happened? What do you attribute the success? The test scores went up. I mean, so many things happened. And I want to know, because I think it's very, very important for other leaders, what did you do to help bring in that level of improvement there in Birmingham?
So urban superintendency and leading school systems is not an easy task. for me. I understood that that's what I had chosen to sign up for in doing the work. Not too long ago, actually this week, I spoke with, I was with Mayor Woodfin, the mayor of Birmingham, and we were reflecting on the last 3 years. He reminded me of my interview when I interviewed for the position of superintendency. You can still probably find it if you look hard enough. It was live streamed. During the interview, Pastor, there was a bomb threat during my live interview. Didn't know it at the time. Literally, security and the attorney walks over and just out of nowhere pulls me, and then they say to everyone, we've got to evacuate the building. We go over, we wait for a little over an hour. I had to pull out my phone to figure out what was going on. They hadn't told me yet, and on my phone were all the media alerts. Bomb threat during Birmingham superintendent's interview. There was another candidate waiting to interview who, during the bomb threat, because he too was in Birmingham waiting to interview, just bowed out gracefully, said thank you, but no thank you. We don't think this is for us. They came back shortly thereafter and asked me, Dr. Herring, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go back in and I want to finish this interview. That's what I came here to do. Mayor Woodfin shared that because he said he knew then that for him, I was the person to help lead and change Birmingham. Changing a school system doesn't come with a magic wand. There is no special formula. There are evidence and research-based practices, and we've certainly embraced those. But the first thing I had to do was honor and respect the culture of Birmingham. I knew that there was a responsibility for me to respect the history of Birmingham, to respect the foot soldiers who are still very much there, but then to also work to build trust. Because one of the things I said in the first few, what I would call all hands on deck meetings, which means the entire organization, they heard me say that I know that change happens at the speed of trust. And who am I, this newcomer to Birmingham? Addressing organizational needs and cultural changes and the culture of the organization was critical. Other things that I say that I think are not to be minimized, but are tied to instructional practices. I'm sometimes referred to as an instructionalist. I don't know that I say that as much, but I get it. I needed to ensure that all of our principals had solid instructional leadership, that we were grounded in instructional practices that were not only research-based, but as much as we were focusing on the culture of the school system, we had to push into the culture of the schools. In addition to that, we had to assess leadership. I've been fortunate that in the time that I've been there, I've hired over half of the schools have new leadership. Some retired out, etc. But that was a critical part. We poured and focused very strategically into teachers and professional development. I made a personal commitment to be visible in schools, and I was and have been. And there's not a school in Birmingham where they haven't seen the superintendent, either announced or unannounced. Not for a gotcha, but for that culture building. And then for us to be accountable on our data. Our data told us upon my arrival, the system was underperforming. I had 22 F-rated schools. I leave, 17 have been eliminated. Of 22, 17 had been eliminated. And then we now find ourselves in a space where we're right at about 6. So we're looking at practices still. The report card for the school system has gone up each year. We're on an upward trajectory. And I've said to them, you have a blueprint for instructional excellence. If you change anything, please hold on to that, because a new blueprint is in place. Relationships and working on culture, again, no magic wand, but a part of the intentional ongoing work. And now I have to say that I'm excited to be able to take those practices and others and find myself leading Atlanta Public Schools. Kudos to what APS has done to date. But in this new season, I'm excited to take the lead to now help us move in another level of success.
Wow. You talked about the excitement, and things that you accomplished at the APS. It's a great segue to my next question.
Okay.
We see the excitement, the experiences that have prepared you for this moment. Are there any concerns, any issues, any fears that you may have as you take on the helm of the superintendency of Atlanta Public Schools?
So I will tell you that as a leader, it is not my style, nor is it my belief to embrace a sense of fear. I recognize that there will be challenges, and I expect and will own that. And I look forward to collaborating with the leaders, the school board, the community to address those challenges, but not in fear, but in focus. I think that's critical. I think that that has to be said and it has to be heard, because it also establishes a sense of a confidence, or at least, if I know for me, it's more comforting for those who follow the system to know that that is the space in which I lead. But I am concerned about a few things. Just like we're doing this interview on this platform virtually, the pandemic is real, it still exists, and that is top of mind for me as it relates to our transitioning. I start July 1. And I've said that Dr. Karstafen and superintendents all across the country, many with whom I interface with on a regular basis across the U.S. With larger systems, we talk about the readiness for a time in which none of us could have been fully prepared. That's top of mind for me for the transition into Atlanta Public Schools and to be able to give reassurance. Now, I say that with the following statement. I also know my wheelhouse. So I recognize the importance of listening to experts, whether those are the experts with infectious diseases, epidemiologists, and otherwise, to make the soundest and safest decisions on behalf of our children, as well as the adults who serve them. I've been saying this over the last couple of weeks during my engagement. It is not just the preparedness that we have to embrace to come back into the physical brick and mortar of the school. People have been traumatized. There's been psychological impact around this. And so there's another level of responsibility in how can we care for and assess that and still also educate. Those are top of mind priorities and concerns. And I go back, and we can't be afraid. We've got to be focused. But I do want to be clear around the need for that to be the most critical part of the preparation of the transition.
I mean, listen to the journey, and just it's amazing. You start your interview with Birmingham City Schools, and in the middle of the interview, there's a bomb threat. You're getting ready to start with superintendents of Atlanta Public Schools, and the worst pandemic in 100 years, coronavirus, has affected and shut down the world. And so having to lead in that type of context, the thing about it is I know you're prepared for it, and it's so exciting for me to see your journey and to know who you are. And I'm excited for the city of Atlanta. I'm excited for the administrators. I'm excited for the teachers, the parents, and the entire constituency, because I know who you are, and I know the journey means a lot. So I know the journey. I know who you are. But what can the citizens of Atlanta, what can the persons who are part of the Atlanta public school system, administrators, teachers, students, what do they get when they get Dr. Lisa Herring?
So I should be clear in that response of what do they get. They get a prepared professional who is passionate about education. That preparedness doesn't come from just having served as superintendent for Birmingham City Schools for the last 3 years, but having a career in which a good portion of that was tied to preparedness for trauma and tragedy, etc. I take great pride, if I can use that word, in having gone through experiences that force us to be prepared. Pride doesn't mean I enjoyed it. It just means that I survived it. And so for that, I am stronger. And so I bring a different strength to where we are. But beyond being prepared, I am passionate about what education means. We are, you and I, products of Bibb County Public Schools. We are sitting here as living proof as to a good public education and what that means. And if we can be exceptional examples of that, everyone can. We are not the exception. We're just exemplars, if I can say that. Every child deserves that. I believe that. That then ties to my passion. The core business of a school system is teaching and learning. 2 parts, 2 key end recipients: teaching, the educator; learning, the children. The data is tied to how our children perform. I want people to know that I'm serious about being accountable for that in the most ethical and responsible of ways. And my passion is also just the joy of seeing children win, to see them succeed, and to know that we played some part in that. That's what I believe my purpose is as well. So that's what you get. And I am grateful and I'm humble that a board thought enough of me to make this move in this season, a unique one, but one in which I am committed to seeing Atlanta Public Schools move to its next elevated level of success, and to be given the responsibility to help champion that is a responsibility that I take seriously, keeping children and families in mind.
That's outstanding. One last question I want to ask you. How has the reception been in terms of the other public officials? Do you feel confident that people are going to galvanize around your efforts? Because it takes a team, and I think everybody has to be on the same page. How has that reception been thus far?
So it has been heartfelt and very energetic. Let me start out by saying, in addition to the 9 school board members for Atlanta Public Schools, all for whom I am very grateful, all 9 of them, their level of support and encouragement has been game changing. I have already been fortunate to start and have had conversations with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and so I'm excited about the opportunity to continue to develop and grow that relationship. I spoke also to CEO Michael Thurman because there are some shared demographics between Atlanta and DeKalb, and I've been encouraged and excited in that space. I've spoken to the Atlanta City's Council. I've spoken to commissioners. I've spoken with Governor Kemp. That continues to, so that expansion of communication continues to evolve and develop. Key CEOs and partners from across the city of Atlanta have not only extended their outreach, but when I say to you that the last 2 to 3 weeks have been intense engagement, we've calculated that I've had over 3,500 individuals with whom I've interacted with over a short window of time. We own that we're in a pandemic and that a good bit of that has been virtual, but it has been. And it's been impactful. And I think there's something about this season that we all should pay attention to. Just as you've shared, you've created a platform because you know that people are tuning in. I saw people tuning in over the last several weeks, and so I've been intentional. I'm energized by what I see. I'm even energized by those who may be uncertain and have doubt, because that gives me the opportunity to show and to demonstrate what is an authentic desire to lead. It has been well received. I'm excited about even more. I've also had a chance to interface with clergy and the faith-based community throughout Atlanta, and I understand that there's more to come in that space. So, Pastor, even this platform speaks volumes to that. I'm coming home. It's a homecoming. It is for me. And I think even beyond that, it is an opportunity to do great work in the place we call home. And I don't think that there's anything greater than that. I'm grateful for every past experience, but to do it in Georgia, that's a different kind of excitement, as you well know.
You know, this has been absolutely incredible. I wish you just could see this little heart of mine to see how happy and how excited I am, and how thankful and how truly humbled and appreciative I am to you. Even though I know we have a relationship, I respect and I honor your time, and I know the assignment is great, and I want you to know we're going to support you here,
Yes.
you know, vociferously, and all our resources and everything that we have, you know, is yours to bear. If you need it, we're going to supply it. So just thank you for being a part. I thank you for sharing your time, taking time out of your schedule to share with those who are watching. I appreciate you, and I'm happy for you, and I thank God for you. It means a lot. It really does. So
That
those
is
who've been
mutual.
watching the Hope TV today, I hope you've been inspired by this episode of One on One. Not just learning about the new superintendent of APS, but also to remember the importance of the journey, and how sometimes you're being prepared for things. When it feels like punishment, it could be preparation. Hope you've been blessed by Dr. Lisa Herring, our newly appointed and newly elected chairman, superintendent of the board, elected by the APS Board of Education. She's going to be the superintendent of the APS starting July 1, and we're excited to have her here. Keep pursuing your dreams, no matter what it looks like. And we're going to log off now, but always remember this: if you will be good to God, God will be good to you. You've been watching One on One on the Hope TV. Until next time, peace.